Welcome to the Marketing Mixtape podcast, hosted by me, Brittany Winfield of the Winfield Creative. If you have a burning marketing question, submit it at speakpipe.com/marketingmixtape, and we'd love to get it answered on a future episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe, baby! And if you're really feeling like it, leave us a review, so that way we can find more listeners just like you. But for now, sit tight, because now it's time for the Marketing Mixtape podcast. Let's go! Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Mixtape podcast. My name is Brittany Winfield, and I'm so excited that you tuned in today. On today's episode, we have one of my very special friends. Her name is Sasha Weilbaker, and Sasha is the owner of Content Works VT. Sasha really is an expert in blogging and knowing exactly how and which keywords will work for your business to expand your brand's reach on search engines like Google and social media and, just the overall internet. No pressure at all. So, Sasha's here on the Marketing Mixtape podcast to answer the question, do people really read blogs anymore? Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you're interested in listening to any of our live recorded episodes, be sure to tune in to the Winfield Creative on Instagram. Hey, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk about, does anybody really read blogs anymore?
Oh, sure. It's a topic.
Yeah. So I'd love to know more about what your journey has been like. I've known you for a year, 2 years now, and you have a pretty interesting story coming to Vermont and now starting your own agency, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I came into like SEO stuff, blog stuff, from a writing background actually. So I was an English major in undergrad. I specialized in creative writing, which I loved. And that's how I spent like my formal education. And then after school, I was like not really sure. I think a lot of my like peers were going into more creative fields, like working for publishing agencies, like stuff more related to like actual literature. And I just didn't really see that for myself. I didn't really see myself actually writing a novel, even though I took a class literally called Writing the Novel. But I did see myself getting into marketing. So I knew I wanted to move to the Bay Area. So I found a job at a women's athletic company called Title IX. It was amazing. It was the best first job ever. And I worked in their marketing department. I was actually on their social team, so like directly under their social media manager, and kind of like was like a little bit of an assistant. Then I also got to learn SEO optimized copy for ecom on the job. And I really fell in love with that. And I think that being able to integrate keywords into copywriting is definitely a superpower and like the best way to attract people to your site. And yeah, I loved that. I love the experience. I did get laid off COVID along with a third of their staff, which was a bummer. But then I pivoted and got a different job for Buff, which makes like head and neck wear, kind of similar to Skeeta.
Yeah.
And my job there was like strictly email marketing. That was cool too, to be able to get that experience. And now I kind of like put the two together to work together. And then their Canadian and US division merged. No going back to the office at that job, and I took that opportunity to move back to the East Coast where my family is. And I worked at that job on Pacific time for about 3 months. I realized like, oh, my social life is not great. I will not be leaving at like 9 p.m. to try to make friends. So I really took the leap and decided to start my own thing. And I did not think it would become what it has. I really like only did SEO optimized blogs. I didn't do audits. I didn't offer email marketing like now. yeah, it's totally like transformed. I thought I would be like, I really called myself a freelancer rather than an agency owner at the time, because that's just like what I thought I could do. And
Yeah.
I BNI, where I met you, Brittany, has turned my perspective of what I can.
Ah, amazing. So, any small business owners here, any large business owners that are listening, I would love to know, how do blogs help businesses, no matter how big or small your company is? How would it help a business grow their online presence and potentially develop leads for them?
Yeah. So really funny. I was rewatching Insecure, um, the TV show, Issa Rae show the other day, and it's great, but it's definitely like a few years old at this point, especially the first few seasons. And one of the main characters was like trying to talk about like what life was like 10 years ago, and he was like making a joke about blogging, like, wow, I'm gonna go on my MySpace and I'm gonna write a blog. And it's funny because I think that's what people think blogging is these days, when they think about it as a personal communication tool rather than a marketing tool. And those two things are different. Just like I'd say, like, I'm not the social media expert here, Brittany is, but like I feel like it's safe to say that using social media for your personal life and using social media as a marketing tool for your business are probably pretty different
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Um, the same's true for blogging. So I like to call blogs unlimited real estate for keywords, because on your homepage, you're not going to dive into like these really specific topics. Your homepage is to introduce people to what your brand is, what your services are. You're not going to be like dive into like something really, really specific the way you can do with blogs.
Mm.
Um, so blogs kind of work twofold. One, Google and other search engines really want to know that you're updating your website, and they want to know that you're continuing to improve your services, and that you're just not like building a website and then like letting it remain stagnant for 5 years. Um, and
Yeah.
so blogs are a really great way to do that. If you are regularly posting blog posts, it doesn't really matter at what frequency, whether it's every day or you're telling Google that you're regularly maintaining your site. And so that really helps like boost your rankings on all search engines. But then that's like one part of why blogs can be helpful. But the second part is that you can target those really niche keywords, so that when people search that keyword um, in a search engine, primarily Google is the most popular right now, they will be directed to the link to that blog post, which will direct them to your website. And then hopefully people will be curious about what your brand is and kind of shop around on your site.
Awesome. So yeah, it feels like keywords is like the keyword of the day, especially with, you know, helping bridge this gap between other pieces of your marketing, including social media. Social media is like this brand awareness tool, and it's really top of the funnel. And then our goal with social media is to bring people to the website. So blogs, I feel like, are a great way to bridge that gap between your social media profile and your website, for people especially that they might not be ready to buy your product right off the bat. How do you feel about using blogs as that like key component to bring people in and to give more value to them, so that way they can make a more educated, purchase?
Yeah, you mean using blogs as like an educational
Yeah.
tool?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so in with SEO, there's kind of this like one of the biggest challenges is to use SEO principles like keywords or backlinking or topics that are built to rank, um, while also not sounding like a robot and like actually appealing to your audience and creating content that people really want to read. So that's kind of like you have to find like a good balance between those two things. So in addition to being a tool to get people to you can also make it a oh Stephanie says hi.
Hi,
Hi Stephanie.
Steph.
Um, also make it a tool that showcases your personality.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. That's a great point. So, as a person that writes blogs on behalf of other people, what is your process of learning about their tone of voice so that way you can have that balance of like the technical keyword pieces, but also that storytelling? What's your process for learning about how to speak in other people's
yeah,
voices?
yeah, that's a great question. I'd say I just like do a deep dive on their internet presence. Like I look at their social. I've actually like Brittany, when we work together, I'd say other people's Instagrams, if I'm trying to emulate their tone of voice, is like the primary tool that I use. I also use the rest of their website. And yeah, like it would kind of be off-putting if the website was written in one like tone of voice and then blog posts were written in a completely other tone of voice. So I do like to have match. But also just in onboarding calls with clients, I can kind of get like what their vibe is. Um, so yeah, it's pretty much just like doing research on everything that they've published so far, talking to the client. I also have like an onboard Google form, and I have people like describe what they're kind of going for or their audience, their target audience. So if their target audience is younger women, I am definitely going to use references that younger women would understand rather than like a different demographic.
Mm. With the rise of AI and ChatGPT, what would be the benefit of hiring somebody that writes blogs professionally versus, throwing an Instagram caption into ChatGPT and being like, make this a blog post? What are some of the benefits of hiring a real human?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say I'm not anti
Oh,
ChatGPT at all.
yeah,
Um,
no, I use it every day. It's my best friend.
like this might be like a radical opinion for someone. Like I actually do like the people that might take my job, but I think like um using ChatGPT as a tool is great. Like
Hmm.
to create outlines. Honestly, you create rough. Um, I think ChatGPT is a really great tool. Um, I don't think. Well, two things. One, in order to prevent every human on the whole planet from just like copy and pasting content directly from ChatGPT, Google has created this guideline called EEAT. I can't remember exactly what it stands for off the top of my head. It's like expertise, something else, authority, trustworthiness. And so that basically is like to prevent people from directly copy and pasting from ChatGPT, so the whole internet just doesn't become content like directly copy and paste from it. So
So I,
what that
sorry, not to cut you off. I just looked up the acronym for it, and expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
awesome. So that basically that rule was kind of created to discourage people from directly copy and pasting from
Mhm.
ChatGPT. So that's a reason to hire an actual human because like Google has already thought of this
Yeah.
and created something to dissuade people from doing that. But also, I just think that ChatGPT or AI generally at like isn't copy and paste ready yet.
Yeah.
Um, it requires like quite a bit of editing to match people's tone of voice. Like exactly, you can plug in prompts that you can tell ChatGPT like what your goal tone of voice is, but in my experience, it's not like completely ready yet. You do need to have a human go through it. Um, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on the social media side of things too, like, yes, I use it every day, but it's not like it knows my clients as well as I do. And there's always that piece of, does it sound like my client? Because it's one thing to be a social media manager or a market provider, and learn about how to speak on behalf of other people. But when you have such like, especially for people that are using free ChatGPT and have not built out the customized like bots on the back end, like it's spewing out the same prompt and the same response to everybody that has the free version, basically. So yeah, you make a great point, and it's exactly the same in my role too with social media. Of like, yeah, it's great for planning and coming up with some ideas, but it's not an end all be all. And also, with keywords being so specific to your audience, one, it's important to know who your audience is, but also one thing to keep in mind is AI is not in real time. It can't pull from, as it doesn't pull from exactly the databases that you need to pull from in order to know in real time what keywords are trending with your audience. What are they looking up on search engines? So that's something to keep in mind too, is like, if blogs depend on keywords, you need to make sure you're using the right ones and the ones that people are in fact looking for at that moment.
For sure. And I think something that would be relevant for both of us is like, I'd say writing a blog post is really only half what I do. After, like, coming up with content is probably only half of what you do. The other half of it is like the actual posting on the back end of a website, making sure alt tags are filled out, writing meta titles, meta descriptions, and that really requires an SEO background. And like you said, AI isn't using real-time data. So something that Google does prioritize when it's ranking content is making sure that there are relevant images, there are relevant backlinks, that it's connected both to external sources and internal sources, that it is posted correctly. And all of that isn't something that AI can do yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. If you are talking to somebody who, you know, maybe they were on Tumblr back in the day, they've heard of the mommy blog phase, and they feel like they've missed the mark, like they've missed the time where things have risen. What would you say to them if they've been thinking about starting a blog, like it's been on their mind? How would you encourage them to get started today?
Yeah, I'd say my first thing that I like to tell people is to be realistic. I do think blogging is a strategy that um, will work, not like just can work. I think like it will work.
Mhm.
Um, if you're willing to like put in the time and also have a little bit of patience about it. So I like to tell people to be realistic because sometimes people, including myself, like they are very aspirational in what they think that they can do. So they say like, yes, I'm going to blog. And then 2 weeks in, they're like, actually, I have like my own deadlines, or actually, like, I'm not this working yet. Um, so, yeah, I like to tell people to create a content calendar that's realistic to them and to really stick with that.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Stephanie, for writing questions in the live here. And I encourage anybody who's watching, please write your questions. So Stephanie wants to know, which website platforms are the best for blogging?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say that it is like a controversial topic on the internet, like what site host is actually best for SEO. Some people say that WordPress is the gold standard, but for small businesses, I think that sometimes you don't need a WordPress, and I usually recommend Squarespace because you can go in and you can edit yourself. Not really like effective, and I'm sure you'd agree, Brittany, because I think we've talked about this before. Like, if you say that WordPress is the gold standard for SEO, but then someone doesn't know how to access their site or how to go in and change things, like it actually probably isn't like effective for SEO in the long run if they're not updating it. So yeah, I think that pretty much all major website platforms are going to be effective for blogging. There are some platforms that make it easier than others. So I would just definitely, like, if you're choosing a new website platform, to research that before committing to it.
Yeah. And if you're just joining, one of the things you said in the beginning of this live is one of the main factors that Google looks at when it's ranking your website is, are you updating it frequently? So if it's just going to become like this stagnant, like you've put out maybe 5 blog posts a few years ago and then let it sit, that's affecting the rankings.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit, and I'd love to learn more about having that, patience in social media. It's also the long game. Things go viral at very random times. But with blogging, especially, I've seen your data, like your charts. I work with you personally, and it is a long game. It is, having that patience, and it's not always that instant gratification that people sometimes assume with marketing. I've seen you present on this topic of the life cycle of a blog post. So for anybody who's, has not heard that before, can you give a little bit of insight as to what is the life cycle of a blog post?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So a stat that I usually like to tell people is that if you write a blog post and it's not SEO optimized, it will peak in traffic after 2 weeks. Um, and yeah, I think that really highlights the importance of doing that keyword research, and including that in your blog post, because blog posts that are SEO optimized can peak years after they're published. So when we're talking about the life cycle of an SEO optimized blog post, from the posting date, I'd say like I'm still watching, like I'm still, when I look at the analytics of blog posts for some of the companies that I write for, they still haven't peaked yet, and it's been 2 or 3 years after they've been published. Actually, some of the blog posts that have been published 2 or 3 years ago are performing better than blog posts that I've published in 2024. And that can be like really frustrating because you want to show your client, like, oh my gosh, like, look at what I've done. And yeah, it's just like, and then you're like, oh, but all these blog posts from 2022 are still like the gaining the most traffic. So yeah, life cycle of a blog post could be peak in traffic a few years after it's been posted. If you see a decline in traffic after having a really steady peak, you can always update it. That's something that I do, and I definitely include in my scope of work for clients um, that have a bigger marketing budget, and that organic search traffic is a big part of their strategy. I usually include updating a few posts per month in addition to writing blog posts. Yeah.
And that's a good point that you pointed out, because when we started working together, I had already, made a few blog posts when I was first getting into, so I use Kajabi, as you know, for my website, my email, my blog. It's an all-in-one service for me. And I wrote a few blog posts back in 2023, maybe, when I was first developing the new website, and let them sit, and then hired you to start writing more current blog posts for me because I just don't have the time. And the one that I wrote like a year ago, year and a half ago, we had made some updates to it, and it's actually the number one
Yeah,
that gets people to look at the Winfield Creative's website. So it's just, you have to have patience. And yeah, you make a great point as to, this is especially beneficial for people that don't update the core of their website as frequently, and still gets people to look at your brand. And it also establishes you as a credible resource. It establishes you as an expert in what you do, and gives you some like creative freedom, and gives you a little bit of free space to like share your knowledge with other people.
that's
It also doesn't have to be like, like, yeah, it's serious as in the keywords, but you could have some fun with it and like include some references that people would be able to relate to, and you start to develop that trust and understanding and that relationship with people, even over a computer screen.
for sure. Yeah, it's great. And it doesn't just like have to live on your blog. If you have a newsletter and you're looking for content, it can be like pretty much, you can kind of repurpose it to be an effective newsletter. You can social, you can repurpose it um, for a video content or a podcast. Like all of it can it can be a starting point for so many different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we do have another question. Lori from SheWorks, thank you so much for writing your question. If anybody else has questions about blogs and blog writing, feel free to write your questions in the Instagram Live. Lori wants to know, how often should you blog in order to gain traction?
That is like the most commonly asked question. Thank you. Up. I again bring it back to being realistic. Um, it like I just tell people um that like ideally blogging kind of as much as possible like would be the most helpful, but especially with like people who have so many other things to do, that's just not possible for a lot of people. So I like to say to pick a frequency um and really stick to it, but ideally at least once a month. um yeah, like I'd say if you blog like once every other month, it's probably gonna go into being less effective. But at least once a month, maybe a goal of twice a month, or for some people like who have the time and energy and resources, once a week would be
Yeah.
great.
And taking it from the social media side of things, one of the things, so I've already, said this. So Sasha is my blog writer, and how we work collaboratively is, oftentimes I'm coming up with content for social media and I'm pumping out social media posts faster than the blogs are coming out. We're on a weekly, we just switched to every other week rotation, but because I also want to like kind of get back into blog writing. So we often take content that I'm cranking out on social media and using the blog post as an opportunity to expand that knowledge. You only get 2,000 characters on an Instagram caption. That's not enough time to teach somebody how to do something. And also the opportunity to like hyperlink to other pieces and other pages on a website to expand that knowledge. So it really is an opportunity to take content that already exists and bring it into your website, bring it into a place that is closer to your audience, because your audience will use your website, but not everybody's on social media either. That's another important thing to remember. So it's actually two places that you can, provide that value to your customer.
Yeah, definitely. And that being said, I what was I just doing last night? I was looking something up for a client last night. I wanted to send them an article on how to do something that they had asked me about. And so I googled like how to link one platform to another, and what came up was a blog. So I sent them a blog post basically that showed them exactly how to do something. That's something that like to get into that much detail, the best format like for long form content is a blog. You can definitely like cover that in an Instagram post and definitely link to a blog or link to an external source, but you can't caption show people in depth how to do something. And also by sending a client of mine that resource in blog post format, they're gonna potentially like go to that company's website as well, and that just like establishes that company as a thought leader.
Yeah, that's a great point. When we are thinking about blog posts, for me anyway, before I started talking to you and really getting to know you and the services you provide, for somebody like me, it was a little bit more obvious as to how service providers can create blog posts for their business. When we're talking about e-commerce and product-based businesses, it might not be so obvious. How can product-based businesses create that like value-based blogging content when they're selling a product?
That's a great question. Um, so I think there are so many ways to do it, but yeah, you're right. It's definitely a lot less obvious. So what I've seen are like gift guides, roundups, listicles, things that actually highlight their products um, in kind of like in like one place instead of all over their website. So for example, the coming up, creating a gift guide is a topic that will likely rank on search, but also shows your customers um, like what products might go really well together. So that's a really, really great way to use blogging for products, but then also answering really frequently asked questions in blog form. So I'm just thinking of an e-commerce company. What's a great example? If someone sells maple syrup, answering commonly asked questions like what are differences between grade A syrup or grade B, whatever, different types of grade. Commonly asked questions that people might be searching for. And if people on the internet are searching for it, your clients are probably searching for it. So then having that information in a blog post means that you can just quickly send that resource rather than having to have the same conversation over and over again. Um, yeah. What are other ways to blog for more e-com services? Yeah, I'd say frequently asked questions. But then also, like instructions, like I'm working with a really high-end furniture company right now where we just published a piece of content um, about like how to choose the right finish for you. Um, that's another great way. But also, like, I think a strategy that I've seen a lot of people using is to write blogs on a topic that isn't directly related to their product, but that some of like their audience might be searching for. For example, that high-end furniture company, they have a really, really showroom in Vermont. Um, and some of the topics that we've been covering are like creating a fall foliage roadmap and putting the showroom on that roadmap so that people searching to do in Vermont might come to the showroom, because and that might be something that they weren't searching for originally.
Wow, that's amazing. I would have never thought of about that. I was
Yeah,
like, here's a covered bridge, here's a cute tree, here's a
yep.
showroom with all of those included. Oh my gosh, that is a great idea.
Like a
Uh,
showroom, it's very Vermonty. Like
yeah,
building traffic around the showroom so that people might come in and be like, wow, like I love this furniture, I might buy it.
yeah. That's great. And Lisa, thank you so much for your comment too. Lisa had the suggestion of also using as an objection handling tool as well. So, you know, handling misconceptions, that's a topic that we talk about all the time in relation to social media is like, how do you incorporate blog posts that like establish you as the expert and also change people's mindsets in some of the stigmas related to whatever service, whatever product, the industry that the business is in.
Yeah, objection handling is a great place for long form content because a lot of times, yeah, there's just a lot to get into there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with, our businesses. That's why we're talking about,
Yeah.
does anybody really read blogs anymore? That's exactly why we labeled it this
I,
title today. Awesome. Well, we talked about a lot of things. We answered a lot of our audience questions. So thank you to everybody who, asked a question. Yeah, I covered everything that I really wanted to talk about today. So there's just really one more question, and then I want you to, promote yourself and, do that call to action. But my one last question for you is, does anybody really read blogs anymore?
Great question, Brittany. Totally unexpected. And I'd say yes. I would say yes.
As somebody who reads them, as somebody who sends them to their clients, yes, it is still viable. It's a great marketing tool for businesses. It's a great bridge between what you do and what I do. And yeah, I want to give you the opportunity to plug Content Works Vermont and all the great things that you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. Well, my name is Sasha Weilbaker. I'm the owner of Content Works Vermont. You can find me here on Instagram at ContentWorks. My website is contentworks.com, and I write blog posts. I do SEO audits, anything SEO I can do. I also do email marketing in many different capacities.
And as somebody who pays part of Sasha's bills every month, she's amazing.
I've gotten I can't remember the percentage, but over 1,000% increase in website traffic since hiring Sasha 2 months ago. So she's the real deal. She knows what she's doing. And yes, people do read blog posts still. So thank you so much, Sasha, for coming on to the Marketing Mixtape podcast today. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in, our friends, Lori, Lisa, Sasha, everybody who tuned in. I saw David Stanley was on here. Thank you so much, and stay tuned, because this full episode, if you did not listen to the whole live, it is being turned into a podcast episode that will be available in the next 2 weeks. And if you want to receive that podcast link, make sure to write the word vibes in the comments below and subscribe to the winfieldcreative.com/viral vibes, because that's a weekly newsletter that sends you all of the trending knowledge you need to know about social media. And this podcast link will be in there in the next 2 weeks. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a great day. And Sasha, I will chat with you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Marketing Mixtape podcast, brought to you by the Winfield Creative. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you could like and subscribe and leave a review and do all the things, so that way we can find more people just like you. And if you still have burning marketing questions that you want answered, be sure to submit them now at speakpipe.com/marketing mixtape. Until next time, this is Brittany Winfield with the Winfield Creative, signing off.